Time for my own tale of revenge. It was either here or over on our malicious compliance that I saw a post that reminded me of this tale, which happened quite some time ago now. Apologies in advance for the long read. Many years ago, my now ex-wife and I decided to upgrade from the small single-story home we were in and find something with more space for us to spread out. We had her late teen son living with us, our 3 Rottweilers. Plus I needed a dedicated study for my work. I'm in technology and often worked from home. After months of searching, we found our dream home. Beautiful, 2-story, 4-bedroom plus study, with huge amounts of space everywhere. Seriously huge. The laundry was bigger than my bedroom growing up. The quality of everything was amazing. Square set walls, no cornices, polished Tassie oak flooring, floor 2, high ceiling windows in the living areas, and 2 walls comprising commercial-grade bistro doors that opened up an entire corner of the house onto the covered outdoor entertaining area. The standard of the build was no surprise. This was a display home up until it landed on the market. We were to be the first people to live in it. I'm going to gloss over months of details and pain, but we had problems with the place from day 2. Literally. On night 2, the plumbing under the ensuite shower gave out and leaked through the kitchen ceiling underneath it. A couple weeks later, during a monster storm, 3 of the light fixtures upstairs started leaking water. A month later, we noticed rust starting to show through the rendering on the corners of the house. There were heaps of smallish, easy-to-fix problems. But the kicker was that the balcony adjoining the master bedroom, at the front of the house, actually started to sag down, to the point that it was unsafe to go out there, due to risk of collapse. We were mostly amenable and nice through most of this. The vendor, also the builder, of course, was a small business, and we had no interest in making his life any more difficult than it already was for a small business owner. But, conversely, we were pouring a lot of our hard-earned into the mortgage, and we wanted what we paid for. But, for his own reasons, the builder just kept making it difficult to get things fixed. There was a seemingly endless list of excuses for not turning up at agreed times. A non-stop torrent of blame directed at his subcontractors. And just plain shitty behavior. Like dodging our calls and not responding to our emails. Of course, we started proceedings with our state's Consumer Affairs Department. After all, we were entitled to a statutory 7-year warranty on a new home. But that process takes time. Time throughout which we were forced to endure issues like water leaks, a dangerous balcony we couldn't use, and a whole host of other issues that meant we weren't enjoying our home. There shouldn't have been any dispute about his responsibility to fix these problems. He just chose to be a dick about it and make us go through the government process, presumably thinking we would give up before he was forced to do anything. At around the same time, we started getting the occasional knock at the door, only to open it and find a couple standing there with a brochure in their hands, and our house pictured on the front. The first few of these conversations ended with us politely explaining that this was no longer a display house. It was our home. Without exception, they all apologized profusely and went away. After a month or so of this, I started to wonder, how was it that people still thought our house was a display home? I went looking, and discovered that the builder's website still had our address listed for display. Despite repeated calls and emails, they steadfastly refused to remove our address from their website. This irritated the shit out of me. These people would often come knocking on weekends, because that's when people go house shopping, right? But our pleas for the builder to update his site simply fell on deaf ears. Enough was enough. An idea had formed. Did I mention I was in technology? First thing I did was scrape their website and set about the task of creating my own version of it, using their exact look and feel. I highlighted every single problem we'd found with the place. Every glamour shot was replaced with shots of the exact same feature, but showing the problems we had. Rust showing through the rendering, water leaking from the light fixtures, close-ups of the sagging balcony, etc. You get the idea. By the time I was done, I had what I felt was the perfect alternate version of their site. One that highlighted every single defect in the home, as well as calling out all the problems we had in dealing with the builder. I even included testimonials that were simply copies of the bullshit emails and texts we received from the builder, avoiding his responsibilities and making lame excuses for not fixing our problems. The headline testimonial was the one where he responded with, "So just don't go out onto the balcony," when I pointed out the clear safety risk it represented. After getting a lawyer friend to check through each page to make sure I wasn't opening myself up to some form of legal action, he helped me change a few sections. Chuckling the whole time, I put the site up for hosting on some cheap and cheerful hosting provider Google told me about. Offshore. Of course. I also registered a close but not close enough to be sued domain name to reach it. The next step was to create some actual collateral for execution of my plan. After all, there was no point going to all this effort unless I was actually able to direct people to the builder's website. So, I took a copy of the brochure for our house that the builder had conveniently left a few behind in one of the kitchen drawers, and set about creating my own version of it. Similar principles as the website, no contact information, except the website address. My website address. By this time, I'd made good friends with a few of my neighbors, and we'd taken to sharing a beer or two most nights on our front lawns. And wouldn't you know it, one of them was a manager for a local print shop. Given he already knew what hell we'd been through with the builder, he took very little convincing to print off a run of my brochure for me. On beautiful paper stock. Nice and glossy. Professional. I think it cost me half a dozen beers. Then came the final step in my plan. I waited. I waited for eager couples to turn up on my doorstep, eyes wide open in wonder at the beauty of the home they were going to pay the builder for their very own copy of. For the next 6 months or so, whenever one of these couples would turn up and knock on my door and explain their purpose, I'd let them know that this model home was selling so quickly that the builder had asked if I could hand out his updated brochure, so potential buyers could go online and look up whatever the current display home address was. I don't know how many brochures I handed out. Of the 100 my neighbor printed for me, I probably only had 2 or 3 dozen left. But I know I also handed a bunch out to mates so they could have a laugh. I'd estimate close to 40 prospective buyers got a copy of my brochure. And I reckon at least 15 to 20 of those came back to thank me for warning them. A few of them had already signed conditional contracts, and managed to get out of them one way or another. I don't know what happened to that builder in the end. I split up with the missus not too long after, and she sold the place not too long after that. At the time of writing this, the builder's website is gone. The domain still appears to be registered in the company's name, and their state business registration still appears to be active, as best I can tell. He's no longer at the last known address for the company, and I can't find any mention of the company online that isn't at least 6 years old. Hopefully the fucker is out of business now, and hopefully the few dozen people I helped sidestep the pain of dealing with him were the beginning of the end of his shitty little enterprise. If you stayed this long, Thanks for reading. Cheers. Thank you for this story. What happened to your mortgage? Did you manage to get your money back? Fantastic. Shame about you and your missus splitting up. I hope it was something else than this house thing. Best of luck in the future. Lol. Exclamation mark. Great job, op. Any chance you still HV the website? Ha ha ha. Great story. Can't stand jackleg builders. He would have done the exact same thing to probably a dozen other people or families. Maybe more. And they likely all would have had the same shoddy construction and the same problem in getting the builder to resolve those issues. I agree with you. I hope the fucker is out of business. Shame you don't know for sure though. That would have made this story a lot better. I'm curious which Australian state this was in, smiley face.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.